The journey of Sarah and Mark illustrates the friction that occurs when systemic awareness meets intuitive exploration. Mark, an executive coach familiar with the levels of relationship model, views their connection through a sociocybernetic lens. He identifies their current state as relational, characterized by steady reciprocity and mutual consideration. Sarah, however, does not think in levels or systemic absolutes. She communicates through the fluid language of feeling and presence, remaining uncertain about formal structures. Their struggle is not defined by dramatic betrayals like cheating, but by the quiet erosion of a missing contract. In Mark's systemic view, they have failed to create a mutually engaging agreement that defines how they process feedback and align their goals. Without this choice architecture, the relationship remains stuck in a stable but stagnant loop. Mark desires to move toward the transformational level, where their destinies become interrelated and the relationship acts as a catalyst for growth. Sarah, while possessing a lovely character, is hesitant to commit to a destiny she cannot yet feel, creating a gap in their systemic synchronization. The problem is one of compatibility versus character. Both are high-functioning individuals, yet their circular causality, the way their behaviors trigger and reinforce one another, is misaligned. Mark's focus on the integral, alignment across psychological, physical, cultural, and environmental domains, feels like a rigid demand to Sarah. Conversely, Sarah's preference for ambiguity feels like systemic entropy to Mark. The solution to this equation is self-development. For Mark, this means developing the emotional intelligence to lead without dictating the level. For Sarah, it involves identifying her own internal genius to understand what she requires from a partner to move beyond simple reciprocity. However, self-development does not guarantee a successful union. As they use the dating phase to gather data, they may find that even as transformed individuals, their core frequencies do not harmonize. To reach higher levels like the transformational or integral, both must agree to a shared destiny. If one person is focused on the me, transactional/relational, while the other is ready for the we, the system will eventually collapse under the weight of its own friction. Ultimately, they are learning that a relationship is a self-actualizing entity. It requires two compatible choice architects to build a structure that sustains them both. The case study of Sarah and Mark highlights a fundamental clash between divergent relationship philosophies. Sarah approaches their connection with a romanticized lens, deeply informed by cinematic tropes and a fairy tale hope for a happily ever after. For her, love is an ethereal force that should remain fluid and intuitive. Any attempt to categorize or structure it feels like stripping away the magic. Conversely, Mark, drawing on his background as an executive coach, views the bond as a foundation for a high-level partnership. His perspective is more pragmatic, akin to a business structure where success is measured by systemic stability and mutual throughput. To achieve true synchronicity, both must concede ground. Sarah's pursuit of fluid romance often lacks the boundaries necessary for long-term survival, while Mark's static business metrics can become sterile, ignoring the emotional feedback loops that sustain human intimacy. The 4 levels of relationship framework provides the necessary middle ground by shifting the focus from individual preferences to systemic development. By centering on these levels, the couple can move past their respective biases. Transcending transactionalism, moving beyond Sarah's expectation of fairy tale, provision and Mark's quid pro quo logic. Stabilizing the relational, acknowledging that reciprocity requires both Sarah's empathy and Mark's structural consideration. Integrating the transformational, using their friction as a catalyst for self-development, where Mark learns emotional flexibility and Sarah learns the value of a shared choice architecture. Ultimately, the goal is the integral level, where romance and pragmatism align across psychological, physical, cultural, and environmental domains. Rather than a happily ever after or a successful merger, they work toward a holistic partnership that functions as a self-actualizing entity.
A relationship is a self-actualizing entity.
It requires two compatible choice architects.